What's up guys, and welcome to my should you summon for Saber and also a small section of Archer's early Eidolons. In this video I'm going to primarily be talking about Saber, highlighting her kit and what makes her strong, some pros and cons and reasons why you should or should not summon. And after Saber I will talk about Archer a little bit, and then why his early Eidolons are pretty good, especially his E1, and reasons why you should get them or not get them. This video primarily assumes you, the viewer, already knows how the character does work, but I will briefly be going over them, just giving a general idea, and that's how this video will be structured, so let's just dive straight in. Saber herself is a very strong character with good multipliers and does work pretty well with practically every support we do have in the game. She actually does fare very nice in both blast and AoE content, and also does do pretty well with her single target multiplier that she can get as a buff in the times you are in need of single target level DPS. So she was designed to work well with all kinds of modes, blast, AoE, and also single target. Her main source of damage does come from her ultimate, which does have a big requirement, but she does have a way to help you with that in her base kit thanks to core resonance, as you are able to consume core resonances to actually get more energy back. The more core resonances you do consume with her skill will make you do more damage, and at the same time you still will get more energy. Her hardest hitting move, which is her ultimate, will also turn her basic attack into an enhanced basic attack, which is going to be her other biggest source of damage. Outside of having the core resonance feature, having a high ultimate charge, and also having an enhanced basic attack, she is relatively simple to use. Just your generic crit DPS, you want to get to breakpoint speed, depending on the setup you're doing, build their attack percent, crit rate, crit damage. Again, as I mentioned, she works very well in single target content, thanks to the fact that her enhanced basic attack specifically will do more damage to one enemy. Her skill is blast, so it can deal with them pretty well. Her ultimate is very high multiplier and fully AoE, which is also great. Her enhanced basic attack is also fully AoE. As I mentioned, it also does more damage if there's only one enemy, so it's not like you're going to lose that much damage if you're only attacking one enemy specifically, as it does get buffed for just having one enemy. Saber herself also does supply a bunch of crit rate, a whole 20% just for free, and is also able to increase her own crit damage. She gets a free 50% by just using her skill for 2 turns, and also each point of core resonance you do gain in the battle, you will gain 4% extra crit damage, stacking up to 8 times. And on top of that, if you do have a thing called Mana Burst, if you do have core resonance you are able to consume and you do have energy able to get to max, you can consume those core resonances and also Mana Burst to recover a skill point and also give Saber a full extra turn. So you can get even more output like that. So that is the general gist on how she does work. I already practically mentioned why she's really strong, but again, for some pros and cons. For pros, she has good multipliers. She fares in practically every single mode pretty well. And since she's also AoE, she's also blast, and she's also single target proofed, at least with the extra multiplier she can get, she will be able to deal with practically all kinds of bosses. She does have her own ways to get around her higher energy requirement, and she does supply herself with a pretty good amount of buffs. So even if you're using weaker supports, she actually will be able to get a lot of stats thanks to what she does. With all these in mind, like I mentioned, she is going to be able to perform relatively well as she has all these things going for her. You know, Pure Fiction wants AoE, so that's going to be good. In APOC, you want to primarily break. She's still able to do some break stuff, so she still will fare relatively well in APOC, especially since her ultimate also has a bunch of instances of damage. And in MLC, she won't have a problem, as again, she has all 3 kinds of enemies covered with the single target buff, with the mainly blast skill, and also AoE ultimate, / enhanced basic attack being AoE fully. She is relatively equipped to deal with all these kind of different playstyles you would have with different bosses. The only one that you wouldn't would be Pollux, but practically any character that is an HP drain isn't equipped for that, so that doesn't really matter. So yeah, all this stuff, good multipliers, being able to be equipped for all these kind of bosses thanks to how she works. Bunch of self buffs, able to ease her own actual high energy requirement thanks to core resonance. Being able to be properly speed tuned is another thing, just because, you know, some characters will give themselves action advances where it might mess up tuning. Saber herself gives her a full turn, so it's not going to mess up your tuning as well. Although for some cons, I did mention this as a positive, but it can also come as a negative, being these self buffs. When a character is supplied with such self buffs, it does make it harder to reap the benefits from other characters that are already providing this kind of stuff. Like, she gives herself a bunch of crit damage, so the buff from someone like Sunday, Bronya, and so on is going to be lesser seen, just because she's already quite saturated in them. And even though she does have some ways to actually get energy herself, not having someone that supplies some form of energy, usually in the means of Sunday, Huopo is a sustain, Tingyun, and so on, it's still going to be decently hard to get it if you don't have at least... It's going to still be decently hard if you don't have at least one other person trying to help you. I'm not going to say it's impossible. It's still definitely possible to get it at a good basis. but having at least one is going to make a big difference. Having someone actually charge her ultimate a little bit, again, VIA Sunday, which is overall her best partner anyways. But let's say you don't have her, you're not running a sustain, or you're not using Popo specifically, you don't want to use Ting Yun, or using Ting Yun somewhere else. Not having at least one person provide some energy is going to make it a bit harder to get her ultimate. But now when we take a look at reasons why you should summon, relatively straightforward. If you are in need of a win DPS, Saber is going to cover that role for you. It's not even the case of, oh, I need one for AoE specifically, single target specifically. As I already mentioned, she does practically do all of them. So Saber is going to be a relatively flexible DPS for you to use. And she also does have quite a few team ideas, so if you do have characters that are already being used up, if you don't have Sunday or he's being used somewhere else, you can very much use Bronya with him. You could also use someone like Ting Yun with him, and she's an accessible 4-star. Saber works fantastic with the AoE buffers, such as Robin, Ron Mei, Tribby, especially with Tribby's E1. She works very well with practically every single support we do have, so she is extremely flexible. So it's really only the case of, are you in need of a win DPS? Another reason would be if you are looking for a second team. Again, Saber would be great for a second team, as she does, once again, have quite the flexible team options. So as a newer player even, you can actually straight up pick up Saber and make a budget team that probably will work, such as running like Bronya, Ting Yun, and Sustain. And then eventually as you get more premium Sustains, you can put them on her team. And then for anyone that has these Sustains, and if someone already has these supports, you're a longer time player, you can very much just slap Sunday, slap Tribby, Robin, Ron Mei, slap Ting Yun. You just have all these options available to you. So she is not specifically locked behind any character. It's not like she's going to lose complete value if you don't run Sunday. It's not like she's going to lose complete value if you don't run Tribby. She has a lot of options going for her. And reasons why you shouldn't summon is practically if you do not need a win DPS or you just don't need another DPS. If you don't need another DPS, then you're not really going to build a team around her, so there's no point. If you already have win covered, let's say you have Fei Xiao, Hypercarry, and Noxa, then your win coverage is already good, so you'll have no reason to really pull. So it's really easy to make a decision if you're in need of a DPS. It becomes an easy thing because, again, she's also very flexible. It's not like the whole con of having very specific supports such as other characters. She does not have that con, so it's really just if you are in need of another DPS, you can pull, specifically win. And if you don't need another DPS or you don't need a specific win DPS, let's say you already have a win team, and potentially that might be your only team, then you can feel free to end up skipping Saber. Now for the brief archers section. This part is not going to be nearly as long. I'm just going to be talking about this kit briefly, and what makes his early Eidolon super strong, and then some reasons why you should or should not get it. So Archer is a pure single target DPS that does consume a lot of skill points. He can overcap skill points. He does give himself a good amount of crit damage as well. He can repeatedly use skill points to continuously fire his skill and consume more and more to do more damage. The more you shoot, the more you can stack up damage dealt. His ultimate is an extremely high multiplier of 1000%. He also has access to a follow-up attack, which you only really will use for utility, so when it does proc, it gives you a skill point back. It's not really for its damage, it's mainly just for the fact that it gives a skill point. He is also seeming to be the best single target DPS in the game we do have currently, as his sheer damage output is extremely high. And then for his early Eidolons, his E1 gives him an extra 2 skill points back after you do use the skill 3 times. And again, that's very easy to do as you're able to consecutively use a skill. So you shoot 3 times and you consume 6 skill points. But once you do the third shot, consuming 6 skill points, you will get 2 back with the E1, effectively giving you a free shot. His E2 will reduce the enemy target's quantum res by 20% when you do use your ultimate, and also induces quantum weakness to them for 2 turns. Both of them are really good. E1 is definitely the winner just because getting a free shot is really good and not only building up his damage easier, but for the fact that a free shot, especially on a higher invested archer team, each shot does 500, 700k plus. You're getting a free shot at that, so you're able to go even more, and it also makes your skill point management easier. The idea of just getting a free skill point back, for shooting more, not only is good for his damage output, it's also just really good to manage SP if you do need to hold it off. So that E1 for him is insanely good thanks to the way how he works. E2, on the other hand, is strong, but the uptime on it can be relatively poor. You do attack with the ultimate, it does a lot of damage, you will lower their quantum rest so you can do more damage to them, and you can induce quantum weakness so that will have less of a need for someone like Silverwolf. Problem is, it only lasts for 2 turns. If you do it against an elite enemy, you're already going to chip away most of their HP with the ultimate, and you're going to be able to kill them with a skill pretty quickly, and Archer does not get his ultimate quickly. Unless you're running someone on the team that provides energy, like Popo is a sustain, which isn't generally recommended, or you're running Sunday with him, which is also generally not too recommended. It takes pretty long to get an ultimate. So past the first ultimate, it's going to take a minute. And a lot of optimal archer teams will be able to kill them with just one ultimate really used from him. And when it comes to attacking bosses, when you do ult the boss and you make them transition into phase 2, they will lose the implant. And since it's only from his ultimate, you're not going to really be able to implant another one. So the whole problem with E2 is the uptime is very, very poor. It does become insanely strong if you are fighting a boss that has higher HP and just one phase, such as Silverrock bosses frequently. Those kind of bosses that just have one phase with a bunch of HP, so it's like they have two phases just into one, because you're going to be able to keep uptime on them and you're going to be able to shred them easier. But when it's a two-phase boss, which is literally almost every boss we have in the game, it becomes a lot more annoying because you will be able to lose that quantum weakness. After you do use it the first time, you use it, you chip off like 40 to 50% of the boss's HP, you do your shots, you kill them, and it's gone. So the whole problem with E2 is the uptime overall is very poor. And now, if you should pull for either of them, E1 is one I definitely recommend if you are going to be a archer user frequently. Obviously, the only way you pull for Eidolons is going to be if you plan on using the unit very frequently. If you plan on using archer very often, I 100% recommend picking up his E1. It's going to make a world of a difference. That extra skill points may not seem like much, but once you actually get to use it, you'll see what I mean. It's going to be really insane. Getting that free shot, getting more skill points back for you to manage easier, being able to build up your damage dealt quicker with less skill points used. It is insanely strong for how it does work. And if you want to further your investment into E2, I only really recommend it if you are going to main him, because you can end up just ignoring this dupe entirely and running Silverwolf, which is one of his best partners anyways. So I only really recommend it if you do want to further main him. So it's not even the case of just using him often, it's going to be a case of straight up maining him. Or you don't want to ever use Silverwolf with him, then the E2 gets slightly more value. I still would not go for it personally, because of just the poor uptime issue I did talk about. But if you do want to actually end up maining him, then it could be good to pick up, especially for the times that you will now have covered for when it's just a one-phase boss fight and you'll be able to keep that implant and absolutely shred through them quicker. And reasons why you shouldn't get them is just if you're not interested in the actual quality of life that the E1 provides. And then E2, you wouldn't be able to get it by default anyways because you don't like the uptime issues either. So if you don't really plan on using them as much, you don't want to main them, then obviously you don't have to pick up the dupes. You can just pick up the free, have fun with that one, probably get his Lycone 2 with the 200 pulls, and you will be good to go. At E0, especially E0S1 with his free Lycone, or free quote-unquote when it's 200 pulls, if you just have him E0S1, he is still going to function great. He's still going to be the best single target DPS in the game. He's going to be very, very strong. You do not need these Eidolons, so if you're just fine with that, then that is completely fine. These dupes are only the ones I recommend getting if you do plan on using them very frequently, as E1 specifically does give a big quality of life that does increase his overall performance, while E2 also does, but it's a bit harder to use and has really bad uptime. And that does wrap up the video. The should you summon for Saber, and also a small section for Archer's early Eidolons. Hope you guys found the video helpful. If you did, dropping a like would be greatly appreciated. If you're new to the channel or haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe and turn the bell icon for future videos like this, along with all the types of Star Wars content and guides. And I'll see you later. Peace out.